Hello everyone. So today we'll be discussing subaltern and civilization perspective to Indian sociology. So this is a part of a lecture of the series that we have discussing Indian sociology. So this is the last part of the topic of the discussion, or you can say the series. So let's get started. Subaltern perspective is basically the history that is written from mass perspective and not from the elitist perspective. So whenever the subaltern perspective comes, we thought of a particular term, that is historiography. So historiography is nothing but art of writing history. This can be of two types, colonial and nationalist. Colonial historiography mainly dominates by the colonial leaders, whereas nationalist historiography dominated by the nationalist leaders, or you can say elitist leaders of post-colonial era. So subaltern perspective is also known as post-colonial theory. So if we look at the history of this particular theory, it has started from last 2 decades of 20th century. It mostly originate its energy from Marxism, post-structuralism, and became a branch of post-colonial criticism. Right? So you can say the scholars of subaltern group anticipated to get rid of histories of elite and the Eurocentric bias of existing imperial history. So, a new group of scholars thought that we need to give recognitions to those leaders who had really done a lot for the creation of Indian history, right? So let's t- talk something on movies. I think everyone has watched the movie Lagaan. So this particular movie is written from subaltern perspective, for which it has nominated to the Oscars too. So whenever we open our history books, we often read the nationalist leader, right? We hard to find the characters like Bhuvan. So now think, our India is full of those characters, but it seems to be ignored. Thus, this particular group of studies try to recognize those masses whose contribution is not being too known to us, right? So there are many scholars behind this perspective, starting from Ranajit Guha, Dipesh Chakraborty, Gyananda Pandey, Syed Amit, David Hardiman, Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak. Uh, I just want to say something on this. If you have an opportunity to read Can Subaltern Speak, written by Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak, just go through it. Or you can even see or listen some of the speech of this particular great person. Right? You will be enlightened. So let's talk first Ranajit Guha. So Ranajit Guha is a historian of South Asia who was a prominent figure in subaltern studies. So his one of his definition on subaltern is that subalterns are not the passive or subject of history. Rather, they are the maker of history. So his main objective of subaltern studies is to rewrite history for the underclasses whose voice were never heard. So he is one of the first and the foremost leader who had written tremendous works on peasant uprising in India. So basically, he looks at the justice to the Indian peasants by investigating the relationship between domination and subjugation in India from 1983 to 1900. So, in those contributions that he has forwarded, his main argument was Indians had did everything by their own, and it is far beyond the effort of authority of leaders and institution of the colonial regime, or you can say nationalist elite politics. This means that those struggles are being fought by the masses of India by their own, right? So here I would like to give an example of Fulogori Dhawa and Pothorugatha Ron. I think these two poison movements you have heard for because these are not written in any of the books, either if you don't go for any civil services, right? So these are the two peasant movement, or you can say civil disobedience movement of Assam. These are fought without the help of leaders, but those were never considered or recognized. Why? Because it is fought without any help of elite leaders, right? So this is the way how Ranajit Guha talks about the subaltern perspective, where especially the peasant section are being excluded from the recognition, right? And everything has been taken by the nationalist elite leaders. Now we talk something from examination point of view on Ambedkar. So B.R. Ambedkar talks about two particular concepts, that is annihilation of caste and graded inequality. So annihilation of caste is Ambedkar critic to Hindu social order, and according to him the society required a total destruction of caste system, and it should be replaced, right? Whereas he also talked about graded inequality, which differentiates from pure inequality. Especially the upper caste enjoys all the facilities and other caste faces all the sufferings according to him. So he provided for an alternative form of nationalism known as Dalit Bahujan Samaj. So his basically point of discussion is that we need to replace the caste inequality because in order to bring egalitarian society, right? So he talked about pre-colonial Brahminism setup which brought all this inequality in India, and we need to dethrone this, right? So Ranajit Guha has already been discussed. Now let's talk something about David Hardiman. So David Hardiman's work is based on Gandhian ideology, and according to him, Gandhi was not only a good ethnographer but an efficient field worker. So here I would like to give two important his work, the feeding of the Banyas and the coming of the Devi. So let's talk about the coming of the Devi in a brief. So here in this particular work, coming of the Devi, he shown a remarkable change in the consciousness among the Adivasis. So especially the Adivasi did not involve directly to any tribal movement, but they felt that if they engaged themselves in the activities of liquor taking or other scenic activities, or means activities that are not good for the society, then Devi would come and curse them. So this ultimately led a political mobilization and raised their standard. So here with David Hardiman said that they did not go for any tribal movement, but their faith on God has ultimately had changed their lifestyle, right? So next is the feeding of the banyas. So basically here Hardiman reflects the integration of a small scale agrarian society with a larger capitalist uh, economy. He actually investigated the deeper meaning involved in the relationship between villager and a moneylender. He observed that villager would go for moneylender instead of banks despite of huge interest. And the main reason behind this was the moneylender was located in the web of domination exercised by the local dominating class. So it is ideologically that Banyas have been able to exert power over their clients. So basically we can say that villagers had undergone with such a relationship with the Banyas that they cannot departed from it, right? So means an in ideological domination is behind the relationship. So this is about David Hardiman. So now let's talk about civilization approach. But before that, I would like to say something on Dipesh Chakraborty. So his contribution are provincial in Europe, post-colonial thought, historical differences. All most of his work actually explores the relationship between history and post-colonial theory. Right. That's all for subaltern perspective. Now let's come to civilizational approach, or you can say perspective. So it is basically a study that understands the society through civilization. Means within a civilization we would see different type of changes that occurs, right? Whether in the form of structure or in the form of culture. So these are being studied by a common approach which is known as civilization approach. In this particular approach, we will study Surajit Sinha and N.K. Bose. So let's talk about Surajit Sinha first. So his contribution towards the philosophical anthropology survey of India is very popular, and even he also talked about the relationship between nature and man in ancient times. He finds that the relationship between man and nature was not exploitative, whereas it is balanced in Indian ancient times, whereas in modern times we find that man uh, try to exploit the nature for their own benefit. So, from the examination point of view, Surajit Singh's two terms, that is tribe caste continuum and peasant continuum, is very important. So, basically, the word continuum has been derived from Robert Redfield's work, right? So, let's talk about tribe caste continuum first. So, it basically transformation of tribe to caste, where a tribe can enter into the Hindu society by adopting the name of the clan or the caste group, right? For example, Todas tribe of Nilgiri Hills. So it is basically transformation of tribe to caste, whereas tribe peasant is transformation tribe to the peasant. Basically, the form of occupation they continue. So this is about Surajit Singha. Next one is N.K. Bose. So his contribution towards Indian civilization was that he see Indian society has some specific, some specific characteristic on or peculiarity that is not existed in the West. For instance, the sorry at the time of pilgrimage. So this peculiarity or specificity is being seen in Indian civilization, where Hindu religion is differ from the West. Though there are a lot of differences among the people, but at the same time, we would see the unity too, right? So let's understand this is more clear. Suppose, have you heard the scheme Dharmajyoti Ashoni of Assam? So this particular scheme actually the people of different caste or religion group would go for the pilgrimage site at a cheaper cost. So it means government would provide money, means funding to those people, right? So though we have lots of differences among the people, it may be a caste difference, it may be gender difference, or you can say religion difference and so on. But during those time they would sit together, sleep together, enjoy together. What is this? This is nothing but moral unity, right? So are some of the aspects which being tried to discuss by the NK Bose through different civilization. And the next important work of his life is Peasant Life in India, a study of Indian diversity. These are some of the few works of NK Bose. So this is the end of our lesson. Hope you have enjoyed it. If you have any query or any questions regarding any point of discussion, kindly post a comment. And if you really seems that if you feel that we are doing our best, kindly share and subscribe our channel. That's all for today. Thank you.